That brings us to our weekly check now with weather with Nebraska Extension and Market Journal Chief Meteorologist Eric Hunt. Eric, what are you tracking when it comes to the week ahead?
Thanks, Bryce. After a relatively warm game on Saturday, we're to get some relief on Sunday in the form of a cold front. They'll be associated with this trough that's moving through the upper Midwest and into the northeastern United States. At the surface, we'll see a cold front driving through much of the state by at least early Sunday morning. They'll bring temperatures down to at least the upper 70s to low 80s across most of the state, with potential for temperatures being a little bit warmer across the panhandle. This front will be coming through dry, though, so we are looking at basically no chance of precipitation across the state. Matter of fact, most of the northern third of the United States has no real shot at precipitation through the first portion of this next week. As I mentioned, we will likely be cooler than average across the eastern portion of the state early this next week, and there's a chance that southeastern Nebraska will remain on the cooler side for most of this next week. So this will be kind of a welcome relief after the heat we've had most of this week. Western Nebraska, though, temperatures are likely to be above average for the week, and as we head toward the end of this next week, we may be back into the 90s across areas like Scottsbluff and Shattern. There will be a few chances for precipitation, at least in central and eastern Nebraska later this week. Looking at 500 millibars, we will be seeing a couple of short waves moving into our region from the north and northwest, with this ridge being placed here over the northwestern United States and western Canada. That will bring at least a chance for precipitation across the region. Right now, the WPC is pretty bearish across most of this area for precipitation. But again, I think we'll have to watch out for potential for at least a quarter to maybe half inch of rain across portions of central and eastern Nebraska between Thursday morning and Friday. As we move into the second week of September, that ridge will be moving further toward the east, and we are likely to see temperatures remain relatively warm for most of this region for a while. The CPC also shows a relatively good chance for it to be drier than average through the second week of September. Again, the CPC is showing relatively warm conditions across the western U.S. I'm a little concerned this is a little bit underdoing the warmth across the eastern portion of Nebraska and western Iowa. So again, I think we will likely be back into the upper 80s and potentially even to the low 90s as we head to the second week of September. This output is the anomalies from the artificial intelligence of the European model, which suggests temperatures will likely be well above average for most of the second week of September. Speaking of heat, we had quite a bit of heat earlier this week across the eastern half of the state, and particularly here in eastern Nebraska, where we had humidity and heat to deal with. So we spent several days in a row with the cattle comfort index reaching the extreme danger value. We've also been very, very dry across a good portion of the state for the last 30 days. So a lot of central and eastern Nebraska has been 50% or less of precipitation month of August. The good news, though, is we have seen pretty good amounts of precipitation across parts of southwestern and the southern portion of the panhandle of Nebraska. And that has helped lead to some drought improvements on the drought monitor across southwestern Nebraska and the southern panhandle. Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of degradation across southeastern Nebraska late. We now actually have some D2 here across Gage and Jefferson and Thayer counties. More drought up here across northeastern Nebraska, and we do have drought conditions expanding east into Cherry County. This is being shown up by Quick Dry with pretty dry conditions across southeastern Nebraska. Soil moisture percentile is generally 20th percentile or less across most of the eastern three-quarters of the state. Soil temperatures mostly in the 70s right now. Temperature precipitation roundup, Nebraska 45, UTEP 14. Thanks. Back to you, Bryce.